Welcome back to Silicon Bites, and this is the first edition of a travel review episode. Well, not really. It's about the dwindling number of places available to Russians for mass tourism, as they're excluded from many countries, and the declining value of the ruble makes more destinations financially unattainable. Before we jump into the full story, thank you to everyone who supports the channel through Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. It means that we don't have to run ads on the channel, which I think everyone is relieved for. I am also immensely grateful to everyone who is subscribed, who shares around the videos, and of course adds comments, which does help their performance in the YouTube algorithm. Now let's jump back into the story. The question Russians now asking themselves in greater numbers is, where should we holiday this year? Occupied Ukraine, a war zone, or North Korea, the Hermit Kingdom? We, as Europeans, should ask, should Russians even be getting visas to holiday in Europe in the context of the full-scale genocidal war it has launched against Ukraine and the ongoing hybrid attacks against European nations? Today's episode is about holidays reshaped by occupation, isolation, and sanctions, where Russian tourism also serves as a chilling propaganda tool. We're dividing this episode into four related stories. Firstly, the beaches in occupied Ukrainian territories that turned into Russian holiday zones. Secondly, the emergence of Russian tourism in North Korea via a new direct flight route. And thirdly, the emergence of other odd destinations for Russian tourists, places like Afghanistan and Iran. And lastly, we touch upon the controversy over Russian tourists seeking European visas. Well, it's not all sand, fun, and sun. These holidays come with some anxiety, trauma, and are based on a complete moral bankruptcy, not only of the Russian government, also of its people. So the first segment, Russian holidays in occupied Ukraine. First stop, Crimea, adjacent resorts under occupation. The Moscow Times reports that over 3 years into Moscow's occupation, Russia is actively promoting seaside getaways in towns like Krylyevka and Berdyansk. That was reported on July 25th, 2025, in its article Sun, Sea and the Russian Flag Inside Vacation Season on the Beaches of Occupied Crimea. Occupying authorities expect 150,000 tourists in Zaporizhia region and 100,000 in Kherson region this year, with efforts to revive Soviet-style health resorts, even facilities for recovering soldiers. That's reported by the Moscow Times. Some of you may think, well, so what? Is there any real risk? Well, yes, there actually is. Also, these places are suffering from near nightly air raid warnings. Imagine a holiday where you must dash for the concrete bomb shelters every few hours, and where just a few miles away from your holiday resort, Russian troops are carrying out a human safari using humans for drone practice in Kherson city. From the local angle, beaches once at the heart of Ukrainian life are now dressed in Russian flags. A Moscow Times correspondent writes Russia is promoting summer getaways to occupied seaside towns as part of a broader push to normalize control over territory it seized by force. Number two, the morality of occupation tourism. There's a deeper moral rot in this holiday push. The occupation of Ukrainian territory is widely considered illegal. As the UN and Ukraine insist, regions like Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia remain Ukraine's, not Russia's. Tourists that browse sunbeds in these places are effectively endorsing annexation, or at a minimum, funding it. It's akin to checking into someone else's home as if the eviction had never happened, or to see it through a darker, perhaps more realistic lens, where the resident was taken out and shot, and you immediately take up resident in their home with that other family's things still all around you. It is simply sick. So why would they go there? The difficulty of getting cheap holidays elsewhere is, of course, a factor. There is a certain pull and nostalgia for Crimea as well, but the range of cheap and package deals available, as well as the quality of the resorts and beaches, must be a draw for Russians on minimal budgets to go to occupied territories. Never mind that you may see missiles and shaheeds overhead. If the drinks are cheap and plentiful, and the risk of being injured and killed, well, that is certainly not zero. But if you're dosed up enough with alcohol enough, maybe you won't even have to think about that. Section 3, the pivot east. Russian tourists head to North Korea. Meanwhile, with European skies closed, Russian tourism is rejigging its travel map eastward, most notably launching direct flights to North Korea. According to The Guardian, July 28th, 2025, direct flights from Moscow to North Korea have begun this week, the first in over 70 years. Priced at about 45,000 rubles or $570, run by Nordwind Airlines monthly with a capacity of around 400 passengers. That is according to the Moscow Times. AP adds that the route shows deepening ties with Lavrov visiting Wonsan Kalma Beach Resort, North Korea's new vacation showcase. A Business Insider summary notes the inaugural 8-hour Boeing 777 flight marks Russia's growing alignment with North Korea after facing international isolation. Russians have traded flights to the French Riviera for a once-a-month charter to Pyongyang. Is that a downgrade? A cynic might suggest that perhaps it is. Or as the Kremlin might put it, it is a geopolitical upgrade. AP News reported that the Wonsan Kalma Resort, opened July 1st, briefly received around 15 Russian visitors on July 11th before North Korea imposed an unexplained temporary ban on foreign tourists despite earlier praise from Kim Jong-un. The resort is expected to cater for up to 20,000 visitors annually, according to AP News. Such a reversal of policy, though, perhaps points to internal uncertainty or PR control, or the need to rethink a little bit and scale up their holiday offering. Section 4, Afghanistan, Iran, and the widening travel net. Tourists are not only eyeing up Pyongyang, Russian tour operators are pushing trips to Afghanistan as well. According to the Moscow Times, July 7th, 2025, week-long package tours to Taliban-run Afghanistan, priced at 235,000 rubles or $3,000, are now available, with the first departures as early as mid-July, according to the Moscow Times. And Russia formally recognized the Taliban government in early July, enabling these tours and deeper cooperation to take place, according to Al Jazeera. The Daily Beast ran a headline, Russian tourists get a nightmare new vacation destination as flight choices dwindle, lamenting shrinking options and highlighting the irony of Russians flying to rivals' resorts when genuine Western holidays are off limits. The Daily Beast, Christian Science Monitor, adds that Russians are flocking to destinations barred to Western tourists, North Korea, Iran, Afghanistan, adding destinations as Western travel bans close off Europe for them. One does wonder whether a certain culture clash is inevitable with Russians that are infamously prone to imbibing a drop or two of alcohol. How will this go down in these strict Muslim theocracies? Section 5, the visa controversy, Russian tourists seeking Europe. Meanwhile, back in Europe, a different drama is unfolding. Although flights to EU countries are banned, direct flights, Russians still seek Schengen visas, and some obtain them. And this, of course, raises controversy. EU governments have been wrestling with whether continuing visa access for Russians undermines sanctions and whether tourism can ever be civilian in times of war. Well, my point of view is that yes, it does undermine sanctions, and no, there is no such thing as a Russian civilian that holds a Russian passport in Europe. I'd strongly argue they cannot and should not be allowed. Political asylum is perhaps the only condition under which Russian passport holders should be allowed in Europe and the UK, and all of them should be vetted and verified to ensure they are willing to denounce Putin's regime and do not have any financial dependencies on it. That at least would be my contention. Pieces in The Guardian note that there are no direct flights from or to Russia with most countries in Europe, but they aren't banned from travelling and entering via third countries if they secure visas. Well, let's wrap this up with a few thoughts on the moral reckoning and some reflections on the tourist destinations of Russians. Russian tourism is becoming a geopolitical instrument used to cement occupation, diversify diplomatic alliances, or challenge the very idea of sanctions. Tourists sunning themselves on occupied Ukrainian beaches normalized the theft and genocide which purged those territories of their original population. Now, this is not a new strategy for Russia, but it is chilling to see it in operation in the 21st century. Monthly North Korean flights, these cement new alliances. Afghan package deals, that rewards a terrorist-led government, well, from one terrorist government to another. Visa entries into Europe, this is a significant moral grey zone, and one which many European countries have simply put off thinking about. Leisure in the context of a full-scale war isn't innocent. It's politics in flip-flops and sunscreen. Tourists complicit in normalization of genocide and ethnic cleansing. As always, the depth of Russia's moral depravity has no rock bottom, but the weakness of European leaders in prioritizing moral and strategic action over domestic imperatives is truly shocking.